Zombies and Nintendo seem to go hand in hand. I am the Game Collector, and this is Second Opinion Games, and today we're going to look at the obvious zombie games right through to the obscure on all Nintendo home consoles. But not the Nintendo Switch or the Virtual Boy, because I feel like they're more handhelds than anything else. So let's start it now!
Second Opinion Games.
Starting off with the NES, we have Castlevania, probably the very first game series you think of with zombies, if not one of the other ones we'll talk about later. Now we have Simon Belmont here whipping all these zombies, bats, cats, and everything else he can find. He even whips candles down to size. Now, if you can get the stopwatch, please do so because it's definitely OP, especially for taking out those bosses. However, the boomerang cross is definitely effective, and I don't need to eat that pork chop in the wall. No, thank you. That is gross. And your worst enemy is most likely the pits that you will fall in again and again and again. This is a great game, if not frustratingly difficult, and I managed to never beat it. Unlike Ghosts and Goblins, which I did actually beat before, even though it took me like a week of leaving my NES on. And yeah, you get to fight some really weirdly animated zombies here. Try not to pick up any weapon that isn't the knife or the lance though, because you will die indefinitely. And after the first level, you never see those zombies ever again. It's a fun game, and I don't even know why he bothers to wear any armor, because the second you get touched by anything, it shatters into pieces. Definitely one that you want to try for a couple minutes at least. Zombie Nation is the obscure game of choice. No one ever knew about this game, why the Nintendo was relevant. And we only found out about it later through most likely emulation when we started looking at the list of Nintendo games and thought, what the heck is this? We started playing and still said, what the heck is this? It's a head flying around, blowing apart just Americans. Because reasons. I guess they all got turned into zombies, and so did the Statue of Liberty if you can make it that far. This is a brutally difficult shoot-'em-up as a head blowing up things. I don't recommend playing this one really at all. Instead, I recommend playing Splatterhouse on the Famicom. This was a game we definitely should have gotten. And instead of the good old rules of Splatterhouse, your guy seems to be resurrected from the dead instead of just finding a mask. This girl's moderately okay with the zombie that seems to want to fornicate with her, but she gets kidnapped and taken away. And you get to fight lots of zombies, including zombies that break out into dance doing the Thriller dance, and yeah, that's actually the Thriller music. I guess that's why we probably never got the game here. If you keep on playing, you'll be able to fight lots of different familiar enemies, especially Linda Blair that spins her head around till it pops off, and then it attacks you with chairs or something. This is a definitely fun game, and it's a must-play for anyone who loves zombie slash-em-ups. Moving on to the Super Nintendo with Zombies Ate My Neighbors. It just might be the most fun zombie game ever, and definitely one of the most beloved Super Nintendo titles. If you happen to play that one to death, I'm playing Oh No More Zombies Ate My Neighbors because it's a fun ROM hack. I even got myself a nice unofficial official card of it, and it's just as fun. It even starts off relatively easy, giving you time to boost up your arsenal. Now, one of the things about this game that you might need to know is that your weapons are more effective against other enemies than what you might think. That's right, use silverware to take down werewolves, squirt guns work really good against your standard zombies, and the weed whacker mows down everything, especially weeds. Now, who doesn't want to save some hot cheerleaders, or maybe even the babies, or the old lady that tries to give you an F for not passing your math homework? You know what? Maybe let her die. A little more uncommon, but not too absurd, is Super Smash TV. Most people don't think of this as a zombie game, but let's face it, the enemies are definitely zombies with clubs trying to rip you apart. That's really the only way you should be looking at this. Other enemies that actually man guns probably aren't zombies, but this is definitely more of a zombie game. It's a twin-stick shooter with using the D-pad and the buttons laid out sort of like a D-pad, which lets you shoot at different angles and move around freely and kill everything, trying to win big money and big prizes. I'd buy that for $1, and these are all things you're probably going to hear again and again, but they never get old. It seems to be more of a play on that movie, The Running Man, with Arnold, I can't say his last name on YouTube without being demonetized, but you know who I'm talking about, and this game is just terrific in all accounts. However, there is one that's actually a more obscure zombie game, and that is Musa: Tale of Japanese Horror. Now, this is a relatively expensive game now, and it's sort of like Castlevania. Your character moves relatively stiff. He can get hit a crap ton of times before he dies, but you're still gonna die really fast because his spear doesn't really seem to be that effective at taking out, well, anything. There's even a little bit of a storyline here, and if you take your time to get to know the game, you'll probably absolutely love it, if you have the fortune to be able to purchase it anyway, or maybe just emulate it or get a reproduction card, and I'm perfectly satisfied with the reproduction cards, believe me. It's a decent game, and certainly one that should be more well known. N64 time, the dark age of 3D gameplay, and Resident Evil 2 is certainly the game that everyone thinks about. However, if you think about it, it's a miracle that this game even got made. It had to use multiple discs for the PlayStation 1, and they got this on one single card, like 1/32 the size of all that other stuff, if not even smaller. There's CGI cutscenes, there's voice acting, and there's graphics every bit as good as the PlayStation version. Heck, even the music and the sound effects are relatively terrific, even if they are a bit blander in general. The gameplay is, well, I'm gonna say really stiff. After all, these are the old days of tank controls, and Leon definitely felt better. However, picking up bullets and putting them in the heads of zombies still is really satisfying, and I love the fire effects. This has definitely some of the best graphics that the Nintendo 64 could have done. A little more uncommon is Nightmare Creatures. There are zombies here, two different characters that you can choose from, just like in Resident Evil, only this time the focus is more on melee weapons and magic. The environments here are relatively huge, and there is that Nintendo 64 fog to contend with. If you could figure out the button combos, you could pull off some pretty cool special moves. Pulling out a gun sometimes to finish off an enemy is satisfying, and just swinging and knocking off a zombie's head is cool, and he keeps on still trying to attack you. Yeah, this is a good one, and yes, you can play it for the PlayStation 1 as well, but I recommend giving it a try on the Nintendo 64. Body Harvest is a zombie game, or is it? No, it looks like a lot of big bugs I'm blowing up. Hey, these guys must be zombies. Well, no, they died like a human. Well, maybe I'll just try and kill a couple more, just to make sure. After I slaughtered this entire town, I went inside to talk to a guy who says, "You're obviously here to help me. Pull my lever. I'm not falling for that one again, buddy." And I hit the road all over again, trying to find more towns of possible zombies to murder and move on from there. Hey, this was the Nintendo 64. There wasn't a whole lot of games that fit the whole zombie theme that I'm trying to go with. Unless you talk about Robotron 64. Now, these are robots, but I think they're more robot zombies. They're trying to murder innocent people, and you're running around trying to cut them down in size. You could even use two controllers at the same time for the twin-stick shooter aspect. Or maybe have a friend be the gunner as you run around, and then you might get into a huge fight, because games aren't meant to be played like that. And also, I gotta say how much I admire Robotron 64, because they just said, screw it, we don't even care about graphics. After all, Smash TV on the Super Nintendo looked a lot better than this, and they don't even care. It also has some of the best music of any Nintendo 64 game in general, and I recommend picking it up because it's dirt cheap. GameCube time, and we'll move through this one pretty quick. Resident Evil 4 is definitely the best GameCube game, but everyone knows about this one really thoroughly. Resident Evil 0 takes place entirely on a train with two different characters that you do not care about at all, and also is not super interesting. So we gotta move on to Eternal Darkness Sandy's Requiem, where you get to take down zombies that are trying to mess with your brain. Sometimes you'll be glitching through walls, the camera will turn at a diagonal, or maybe your head will just pop off while you're running around. The gameplay is great, the story is even better, except for like the last hour of gameplay, and then it all starts to fall apart. And you have to play through the game 3 times to get to the real ending, which is just not worth it at that point. However, for the most part, this game is beautiful and terrific, and I recommend everyone give it a try. On the little more obscure side, we have Hunter the Reckoning. This was a sequel to an Xbox-only game called The Hunter, and it was done really well on the GameCube. Now, there are 4 different characters you could choose from. It's sort of like a gauntlet style. Some of the characters are weaker and stronger in other areas. I like the Judge the best because he uses melee weapons and ranged weapons like a crossbow with infinite ammo, machine guns and shotguns, and he has this cool thing that he can shine some holy light out of to make zombies go poof. And yeah, it's all about saving people and completing different missions, moving on to the next area and doing it all again. The graphics here are beautiful, the gameplay is tight as all heck, and it's one of those perfect party games, or it can be played by yourself, which I often have to do. This is a terrific one, and I haven't seen many people talk about it at all. Time to start swinging your hands all over the place because we gotta play some Wii. Resident Evil 4 is probably the best Nintendo Wii game, which is just a remake of Resident Evil 4 on the GameCube, just with a lot more content and some added features. Like, how about the fact that when you change ammo clips in your gun, the clip sound comes out of the Wii remote itself. Also, swinging your knife is as easy as just swinging the Wii remote around in a fast waggle motion, and headshots are easy as heck to pop off. That's enough about Resident Evil 4. Now let's talk about Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, which is a great light gun game. You could also be playing the House of the Dead Overkill here, but remember that train game that I didn't really want to talk about for the GameCube? Well, you could play it as first-person shooter mode here. It's freaking sweet now. And I like the controls of this a lot more than that game. But a little more obscure is Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop. Now, the game on the 360 was huge, and when they dumbed it down and brought it to the Wii, no one really even cared about it. But they were wrong because it's actually a better game. It uses the Wii waggle remotes very little here, and aiming is much like aiming in Resident Evil 4. Matter of fact, the controls in general is very similar to that game. Now, a shopping cart might be the best weapon in the entire game, running over people. They got rid of the time limit, so you don't have to worry about doing things in the wrong order or missing key events. The storyline is here and structured very well. However, most of the time you're reading text and it feels a little generic from time to time. However, you could actually read the text, unlike trying to play that old Xbox 360 game where everything felt really off because they really didn't know what the heck they were doing with the hardware at the time. Dead Rising Chop Till You Drop is a much better zombie experience, even if there is much fewer zombies. But it doesn't mean it's not really fun to kill them with stupid weapons. And finally, we have the Wii U. Zombie U was the premier game you had to pick up. It's a first-person shooter where you play with just one life. Unless you manage to die, and then you play a different person with just one life. You can even scavenge your own dead body to pick up the weapons that you previously left behind. Now, most of the time, you're going to be hacking into things, using the tablet in cool ways, which makes it definitely the best version of this game. Later, it did come out on the Xbox 360 and PS3, but they stripped out all the things that really made the game fun, even if the frame rate is just a little bit better. It's a great zombie game, and I strongly recommend everyone play it. And yes, it does get really scary, because the longer you play, the just crazier everything gets. And then if you happen to die, then the zombies level down a bit more. So then you have to try and play through the whole game with one life, which is something that I could never do. I also like the fact that I can transform my face into the different zombies. The kids play with this for like hours, but now everyone has a smartphone that does it. But you know what? It's Zombie U, made just for me. Much lesser talked about was the Walking Dead Survival Instinct. This is a pretty darn cool first-person shooter with lots of zombies. Sometimes you have to pick up glass bottles and throw them. Most of the time you're gonna try and run from them or avoid them at all costs. If they do happen to hoard around you, well then you do have a chance to take them out with a knife and stab them through the little zombie heads. Completing the missions is kind of fun. Even if you do play as a hillbilly, some people don't like that so much. Most of the time you're going to try and find gas, resources, and survivors to help you play through the storyline of this game. A lot of people don't seem to like it a whole lot, but honestly, I think it's a lot of fun, even if it is kind of hard. Now there are some few other notable games for the Wii U, like anything with the name Resident Evil in it, it's going to be a winner, and How to Survive, which is a downloadable game. But I talked about that once before, so how about Zombie Brigade, No Brain, No Gain? This is one of those really weird Flash-based games that someone ported over to the Wii U eShop, and you just try to tap the button and jump over pits, and munch on other people's brains trying to make it to the finish line, if there even is one. Sometimes you just want to see how far you can get. There's an annoying girl that just screams at you when you break light poles or tells you to go, and there's even Stalin here, who is also a zombie. You could even be running around France, and then bicyclists tend to get in the way. It's a cool game and probably worth the $2 you might spend on it, but I probably wouldn't put any more effort into it. But one of the cheapest time sinks I ever laid my hands on was Block Zombies on the Wii U. In this game, you run around trying to drain crystals, blow up zombies, upgrade your weapons, pick up shotguns, machine guns, rocket launchers, mines, flares, or grenades, and then bring down some much bigger zombies. The whole goal is to move from mission to mission and fill in your entire map. When your whole map is filled in, presumably you win. Now, I played this for 6 hours straight the other day. I could not stop playing the second I picked it up, even though the graphics are obviously terrible, and this is mindless fun. This is mindless fun that I can definitely get behind because it's addictive. Every time you complete a level, you think I'll play for just a little bit more, and maybe I can finally beat this game, and it just keeps on going. Also, the way you level up your weapons at your own disposal definitely keeps you well addicted into it. And this is really late into the game, so I am dying a lot by this point. And it manages to be one of the most addictive games I ever picked up for $1, and I'm really happy to be playing on the Wii U. Nintendo was terrific with zombie games throughout the years. Sure, it had its missteps here and there, but there's a lot more winners than losers here, and that's why Nintendo just might be the king of zombie video games. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it, and my goal here was to let you guys know about maybe 1 or 2 or 3 games you didn't know anything about. After all, exploring all the video game consoles is something that I love doing as a hobby, and that's why I share my passion with you guys. What's your favorite game I talked about today? One of the lesser known ones I really appreciate is Hunter the Reckoning. I'm going to go back and probably try and finish that this afternoon. So until later, I will see you again, guys.